Hey friends, Creep Week 5 has been brought to you like they have been every year by our good friends over at jackprince.com. If you're one of our listeners who's an illustrator and you feel like you have a story in you, did you know that Jack Prince can help you tell that story? That's right. They do all kinds of printing. So whether you wanted to do postcards to send out to promote that you have something coming, or if you wanted to make a graphic novel, they can help you out and have many affordable packages so that you can find the affordable way and the proper page count to tell the story that you have in your mind. And I'd encourage you, if you've always wanted to put out a book, put out your own. Make a small 8-page, 16-page version of what you think the world should look like, because once people can see it, they know that you could do it, and then you will get hired to do it again. Today's episode's all about looking at the world of publishing. Gary grinded out a very long career to get to where he's at. You could jumpstart that by creating your own book today, even if it's just a demo, to show the world what you're capable of. And with Jack Prince, no quantity is too big or too small. So if you just need to make a few to pass around to hopefully get that green light for your dream project, they've got a package just for you. jackprince.com/circle of trust. Whatever you try to make it with Jack Prince. And speaking of Creep Week, going on for 5 years now, if you're a member of the Circle of Trust, you can log in to listen to all the archive going back to 2014. And over the years, we've had appearances by Jordan Buckley. It was the first time we ever met Tallboy. I interviewed the great artist Florian Bertmer, Tony Moore, one of the co-creators of The Walking Dead. We've had Bone Thrower on a couple of times. It's where we met Skinner, friend of the show, Dylan Garrett Smith. And last year, for episode 666, the phenomenal historic artist Coop came on to talk all about his world of pinup girls and being a Satanist. And speaking of the dark side, last year we also had on episode 665, neighbor of the beast, Jess Schnabel of Blood Milk. What a fantastic interview that is. What an interesting woman she is and her world of Blood Milk. If you haven't seen her shop, go look at it. It is just ephemera for the ages. You will love what you see over there. And if you're a dude, private browse it. You don't want your lady friend to see it because you'll get talked into buying some crazy expensive jewelry, but it'll be worth it in the long run, right? Right? It always is. We also talked to Ben of Fright Rags, who it's a whole different view. And what I love to do with the Circle of Trust is if you love Halloween, but maybe you're not an illustrator or a graphic designer or a filmmaker, you can do what Ben did over at Fright Rags, and that's create a merch line out of your fandom. I just saw him at Halloween 40. He was absolutely killing it. And I always love interviewing somebody when they're a fan, when they're obsessed with something, and they figure out how to turn the fandom into a business. Profitability can always be linked to a passion if you do it properly. It just takes a lot of time, a lot of understanding, a little bit of failure, and a whole lot of strong will to get there. And that's what we cater to members of the Circle of Trust. Sign up today at AID.network. You'll get the entire Creep Week collection, as well as all 800 episodes and the second part of today's episode with Ghoulish Gary Pullin, all about his new book that just came out. I'm going to recommend that you go and get it. Look for it over on Amazon, or you can get it from the publisher themselves, 1984publishing.com, where if you buy it straight from the publisher, you get a special edition Goblin 12-inch vinyl with the book. It's a fantastic book. We talk all about it today. And if you're a Circle of Trust member, one of the perks is if you log in, Gary's been nice enough to share 13 pages where you can go and follow along with the artwork that we're talking about. So make sure when you log in to get your episode that you keep the browser window open and you follow along with all the great artwork. What do you say we get started with our expanded Creep Week, episode 6 of Creep Week 5?
Good evening and good creeping. On the show today, he returns as he does each and every Halloween. It's Ghoulish, the art of Gary Pullin. We talk all about the first book that Gary produced. You'll want to get one. You'll want to listen to today's show.
Don't worry. Just 2 more episodes of me laughing like an asshole. How you doing? Good morning. Welcome back to another Adventures in Design with this year our expanded Creep Week. 8 episodes instead of 5. The calendar landed just right, just properly. Before we get into today's episode with Ghoulish Gary, who comes on every year to bring us his favorite creepy posters that he's seen over the year, our annual Creep Down, which will take place tomorrow. But before we get into our Creep Down, I wanted to do an episode where we talked about his book that he put out. It's called Ghoulish, The Art of Gary Pullin. It's put out by 1984 Publishing. They did a fantastic job with it. It's not too big of a book, but it's enough. It's loaded with great insight on how you build a career and all of Gary's artwork as of time of publishing. And Gary did a bold thing. He showed the early years, and it's in chronological art order. So imagine starting out your book showing your earliest, probably most cringy, most embarrassing work that you have to date. A bold move, but I respect it because it shows the journey and the path. And we'll talk all about that in the interview portion of today's episode. But before we get into it, I wanted to talk to you something real quick. The reason why I go so nuts around Halloween is because, well, it's nice to make a theme and it brings listeners back and people enjoy it. But Halloween, if it's anything, it's a reminder of what being a fan is all about. I know a lot of us, including myself, you sometimes think that you're too cool to be a fan. And I'm very guilty of this. You know, like I'm too cool to go to a show unless I'm going to be able to stand on the side of the stage. And I'm too cool to do this because I don't want to wait in line. And I'm too cool to say this because I don't want to be embarrassed. But Halloween and Christmas time, if you break it down, sure, it's about tradition, but it's really about being a fan of the human experience, whether it's Christmas where we, hypothetically have these great moments with all those that we love, whether it's Thanksgiving where we get together and we're thankful for what we have, or if it's Halloween where we just sort of celebrate, all things spooky and scary, which is a very important part of the human experience because we have real shit that scares us every day, whether it's the headlines in the news, which are going fast and furious, or whether it's your career because you're an outlaw, you're a cowboy, you're making your career up as you're going along. You don't have the planned out retirement that your dad had, and he didn't have the one that his grandfather did. But you're out there every day, instead of chipping away at, your 20 years at Ford's, you're building something that you're proud of. You're building something off of your passion. And Halloween is one of those moments where it's really a celebration of passion and things that people care about. And, some people don't participate and some people turn their house into a haunted house. Everybody has their own level of giving and being a part of the festivities. But one of the things I've been able to diagnose since I started doing this as my full-time job, November 14, 2014, nearly just days away from my 4-year anniversary, I've realized that so many of the people that I find interesting and share with you and that you resonate with is it's always about a passion, right? We've rarely talked to somebody, and there have been a couple of these stories where they're like, oh, if I do this, it'll make me money. And then I'll follow the money to some sort of happiness. I mean, granted, that is a part of business. Find a hole in the market, patch that hole, solve that problem, you will get rewarded for it. But 99.9% of the time, we're talking to people that said, this is something that I love. It makes me incredibly happy. Is there a way for me to turn this thing into something that I want to do as a career? And it's not easy. We've explored that for a solid 4 years, just how difficult it is. And you've even heard me in real time talk about the ups and downs of being one of the very first ever professional podcasters, non-celebrity category. Thank you. Always got to put that asterisk next to my name. Guy without Wikipedia entry decides to build a podcast network and then says it like a drunk. But the point of this is that we each have something in us that we're passionate about. And for people that used to hate their jobs, this passion was called a hobby. But many of us, we can't afford to do a hobby because, well, we're so tethered into whatever this thing is that we do for a living, there's just not the hours or the resources. Or many of us say, if I'm going to stay up till 3 a.m. doing something dumb, it better be something dumb that goes towards my dream. So a hobby has kind of been kicked to the curb, but that passion is now in our professionalism. It's in our career. And the weird thing is that even when your career gets greenlit and it gets going, and you think, well, I'm a graphic designer, or I'm a writer, or I'm a photographer, you can get into a scary pattern, a real creepy pattern. Got to tie in Halloween wherever I can, where you start to forget that you're working for you and not for your clients. You see, sometimes just it is the job set, right? And you're like, oh my God, I'm living my dream because I'm able to be a graphic designer. And that's what I always wanted to do. But then when you start working for many of your clients and you're just designing whatever they want you to, or you're an illustrator and you realize one day all 10 projects you have lined up is just what somebody else hired you to do. Are you really? And honestly, are you really living your dream? Or are you doing your dream job for someone else? And I think if you pump the brakes and look at it, there is something to ponder in there. Like, it used to be, I just want to do this craft for a living or this trade for a living. And then you got into that, and maybe, and this has happened to me, so I'm not above what I'm talking about, you get a little lazy, you start just answering the email, you start taking the jobs that come to you, and the next thing you know, the dream is being dictated by the clients. So when I interview people that had a passion that was bigger than the trade, I love to focus in on that, because whatever trade that you've been able to successfully make your career, think about it. If you're a photographer, are you really taking the type of photos that you want to be taking? Like, are you doing the work right now that's going to get you discovered for that next level up of clients or sponsors, or to land the book that you want to make, or the art show that you've been dreaming about, or the prints that you want to have in a web store? Like, are you right now today doing the type of work you want to do? Not the trade. I'm assuming you're already doing the trade. I'm assuming you're already kind of working with the tools you want to be working with. But are you building something for you? If you're making a brick today, are you placing that brick in the kingdom of your own castle? Or are you building that castle in somebody else's kingdom? That was a weird analogy. I went there. I think I kind of halfway got it right. But you understand what I'm saying, I hope, is that just getting to work the tools isn't enough. We have to remember to always press ourselves to do that next thing. Just getting into the trade is, in my opinion, only getting halfway there. It's figuring out our voice, finding our story, and staying true to our passion that gets us the other halfway. Now, I bring that up on Creep Week because I think that when you look at people that really are passionate about things like Halloween or horror, these are things that are, I don't know, used to be way more fringe, way more left of the center. But it's all these people that at one point in their life, they decided that this magical day of dressing up and carrying a plastic pumpkin with their mom and their dad and their older brother and their younger sister and going up to a neighbor's house and overcoming that fear of talking to a stranger. I mean, we all were fearful of strangers when we were 2 or 3. And if you weren't, then your parents weren't very good at their job. But we all know that feeling of going out and creating these moments and these memories. And then all of the, ephemera and mascots and decorations that are tethered to it. And some people decided that night and those films and that celebration meant so much to them that they wanted to make a career out of it. And making a career out of the theme of a holiday, well, it sounds fucking ridiculous, but it also sounds completely possible. And there's many people that have done it. So for me, the celebration of Creep Week is really about the celebration of people that found something that they love so much that they're willing to do it for the other whack jobs that love it as much as them. Like having a career in anything related to horror or dark art or lowbrow stuff. I mean, by design, you are every day chipping away at something that a majority of America doesn't understand, don't want a part of it. Some people protest it. A lot of people think it's grotesque. Like, it's not sitting down and going, I'm going to make something that everyone loves. It's the idea of sitting down and going, I'm going to make something that I love. And that people that are like me, people that are from the same flock as me, they will hopefully love it too. To me, that's what this celebration is about. If you want me to list all the scary movies I've ever seen, it's going to be a real short list. And you're going to tell me, but Bricky, those aren't that scary. And I'd agree with you. I'm not really a horror or Halloween type guy. I mean, I am the guy that got so scared in a haunted house that it had to get shut down and the lights had to get turned on and I had to get pulled out. I mean, I got my own demons, right? And they sure as hell aren't from a guy in a rubber suit. They're from real humans that did real shitty stuff. And I battle them all the time. But what I'm saying is to me, this celebration is really about passion. And it's about people that found a way to turn that passion into something that challenges them, something that makes them happy, and something that pays their way through this world. So I know I've gone on for a bit here, but every now and again, you know, a broken clock, it's right at least twice a day, except for my wife pointed out to me when I was telling her that analogy, she said, yeah, but what if the clock's so broken that it doesn't have its arms on it? Or it's a digital clock that's just going 8888. I was all right, Beth, you are your father's daughter. Way to really break apart that one. But what I'm saying is that I'm not a bright guy. And when these thoughts come to my head, I feel it's my responsibility to share them with you and also to share them with myself. Am I making the type of show that I want to listen to? Am I talking to the type of people that challenge me? Are my plans for 2019 and the 5th year of the Circle of Trust, are they ambitious enough? We'll see, but I'm willing to take on the challenge and I'm willing to do it every day and show back up here if you do. Today's show, like all shows, is always made possible by the Circle of Trust. They sign up at AID.network and you know all the benefits they get. But what they really are, they're the people that bring this show to the airwaves or to your download each and every day. They're the supporters, they're the backers, and they're the community that we've built. And hopefully, we will all one day figure out that we not only picked up the tools that we wanted to work with for the rest of our life, but we created the projects that we wanted to put next to our name. Today's guest, Ghoulish Gary Pullin. He's been on the show several times. He comes back each and every Halloween to hang out with us. He's got a beautiful book put out called Ghoulish, The Art of Gary Pullin. Even if you're not a horror fan, even if you're not somebody who's into posters and packaging, if you're a creative and you're an artist, I highly recommend this book. I highly recommend it because Gary started out like a lot of us. A little rough, a little crude, didn't have it all quite figured out. He picked up a job. Through that job, he was able to sharpen his skill set and become a really good commercial artist. Then through the world of posters, he was able to lower the noises in his head, focus on one thing at a time, and show that he's not only a fantastic painter and illustrator, but one of the best graphic designers that I know. And then he was able to evolve into doing packaging work and creating his own products and really becoming a 360 artist or commercial artist, a guy that can draw what you want, paint what's needed, and put it together in a beautiful graphic design composition. Guys like Gary are not so plenty these days. As the internet's gotten big and people have gotten specialized, it's rare that you can find somebody that can do it all. But when you pick up this book, you realize none of it was easy for him. It all was a tremendous amount of hard work that had the sweetest of payoffs, because every year and every page of the book, you see someone getting better and better at their craft and at finding their voice. And you know that he's a fan and that everything that he puts out into the world is something that makes him happy. Gary not only got to the tools, but he got to the work that he wanted to do for himself and for many others. It's Ghoulish Gary Pullin, an interview today all about his book. Come back tomorrow when Gary joins us, along with some brief cameos from Jason Edmonston, when tomorrow we do our annual Creep Down. Gary's pulled 13 prints for us in no particular order because only I am crazy enough to say, this guy's better than that guy. You're a 7, but him, he's a 3, her, she's a 2, that guy's a 1. Only I am crazy enough to put numbers next to people's names and rub everybody the wrong way. But Gary, we'll give him a pass. He just picked 13 really scary prints. That'll be up tomorrow, along with Jason Edmonston, who's in the room while we're doing this. Jason was supposed to be a part of the interview, but Mr. Busy had to sign 300 prints. And we put a microphone next to him so you can hear that as well. Let's jump in. It's Ghoulish Gary Pullin on Creep Week 5, Episode 6. We've done this now, what, 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years in a row, man.
3 years
Thank
in
you.
a row, recorded several times.
Okay.
Bonus material falling out of my book. Oh, how convenient to open up the show that way. Ghoulish, the art of Gary Pullin. Your first ever, for real, coffee table, hardbound art book. It's fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
Also on the show, kinda, Jason Edmonston is in the hotel room. He tried to big dick me, and last night I fell asleep on the couch. And at 4 a.m., not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 text messages, bing, 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 bing. It literally, like, I woke up like, oh my God, my slot machine is paying off. But no, as always, a loser in life. There's no money, just a Canadian who's like, Mark, I've been signing posters. And to his credit, these text messages come through at 4 a.m. He's like, I'm still signing fucking prints. Pasadena, the Halloween 40 kicks off tomorrow. I got to be setting up a booth at 9 a.m. I'm going to be up another hour and a half. And then he does the Hollywood thing. He does the Hollywood thing, Hollywood Bricky. I'm going to have to pass on the show this time. Now, I have a rule. If you give me less than 24 hours, you don't just pass on the show. You pass on AID. But Jason, I love him. I walked up to him today, tried to give me a hug. I said, no, you're dead to me.
Right. I saw that.
And I explained to him, I go, look, man, when people cancel within 24 hours, they're just saying, fuck you. I don't have time for this. It's not important to me. And to me, they're dead to me. But I told Jason, because I love him.
Yeah. Exceptions can be made.
1 year suspension.
Oh,
like,
1 year.
I'm like, if you don't show up at some point in this episode, you can't be on until next Halloween.
Or cut him out of the circle of trust.
No,
That's harsh.
I need his fucking $9.99. I can't do that. Let's not be crazy, Gary.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry. Over the line.
So Jason's in the room and
Signing away.
signing posters, just doing the whole Jason thing, and he has a microphone, so maybe he'll grace us with his beauty. But Gary, you were able to put out this book.
Yep.
And the wild thing about creating a book is that it's an insane amount of work.
Yeah, it took about a year for sure.
That does not surprise me at all.
Yeah, I worked with 1984 Publishing, independent label. Already released a couple of books. He was, knew the artwork. He did 2 books before this one, alternative movie poster art. And so I was in those. He had them published through another company, but he left that company to start his own. And man, I mean, it's been really amazing, like putting this thing together. I should also say a friend of mine, Dave Alexander, was help making the book too. And yeah, just it all came together so good. And it's like the process of, finding some of the old images, like a lot of the book is chronological. And
which I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
There's kind of a danger in the chronological book.
Sure.
Because when I looked at this book, the thing that struck me the most, and, to be completely honest and transparent, and I think that you know this and the audience know this, I'm not really a monsters guy. I can enjoy Halloween like the average guy.
I'm trying to make you a horror fan, Mark. I've been trying.
And I appreciate it. And we try this every year. But when I look at the book, is what this book really is to me is it's an evolution of of an artist. And, when, I went ahead and bookmarked, because you're Ghoulish Gary, I bookmarked 13, your signature number.
I love it.
13 parts of the book that really made me excited. And the first one that I put my tag on was the chapters. The book's divided into 5 chapters.
Yeah.
It ends with more Ghoulish, which is sort of the merchandising and the current state.
General stuff.
It then 4, possibly my favorite, shows your records and video, your packaging design.
Yeah.
Film posters where it feels like you really found your voice as an artist.
Oh, wow. Thanks, man.
Remorgue, where it was kind of your on-the-job training.
Yeah. Dream job, too, when,
And I think all of us can look at our career and look at that job that we had where we got to learn.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a blessing to get the work, to say that's what you did, but to also figure at some point, like, I'm kind of faking my way through some of this, but every week when I get my paycheck, I now know more and I'm a better designer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, working at Remorgue is amazing. I mean, it made me a horror expert because I was surrounded by journalists.
Yeah, you were.
And you know what I mean? Like, and also, I was the art director. I mean, I was in total control. The you got to forgive my voice. Oh, man.
It's been a long convention day for these guys.
Yeah, like I've been talking all day, guys. Sorry about that. The publisher let me do whatever I wanted to do.
Right.
I mean, of course there was some guidance there, but for the general attitude of the magazine. But man, honestly, when I met the publisher, we hit it off, and then I just did my own thing at his magazine for 15 years, and it was amazing.
I already have a water, Jason, because I'm a professional, but I want you guys to know at home that Jason's now serving water to Gary. The weird thing is Jason's going to have to talk at some point, because so many times James Flames was in the studio, but he was making a hero sandwich, he was making a hoagie, he was making pasta. He was eating Snickers. So, all right. So we need you to know that you're there. Yeah, and the weird thing about the Rue Moore chapter is when you come in and when you leave.
Right.
That grind made you a guy that could illustrate, do some page layout. It made you a real commercial illustrator, a real commercial designer. And I think that really shows in the posters and the packaging. But Wild Thing is starting to book out with the early years.
Yeah.
My biggest fear would be somebody would pick it up, they would flip through the first little bit and be like, I don't know.
That old work. Oh,
Yeah.
Trust me.
Is that scary or what?
It was, because some of that stuff is just stuff I can't even look at anymore.
But you know what? Which is when people go, hey, did you design your own tattoos? I'm like, are you insane?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think I want to critique myself till the day that I die?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would never do my own tattoo. But it's one of those things where it was like, you know what? This stuff was important back then. It helped me develop. It was stuff that people were responding to. And, so I put in the best of like the old stuff, a lot of it I didn't want to put in, or couldn't put in, but kept it real tight. That first chapter, just here's how I kind of grew up. There's a shot in that book of my binder from high school.
Yeah.
And it's got, Night of the Living Dead, Friday the 13th, Hellraiser, like all these awesome horror movies and metal logos. That's where my head was at. And I'm sure a lot of other folks, like a lot of other artists or people that were into horror and metal back in the 80s. I'm a product of that. I totally am. I accept it now.
Yeah. And it really shows where you came from, how you go. And, I started out saying the book is the evolution of an artist, but something else that I think would cut through anybody and sort of the boldness of putting your sketchbooks in the beginning and something that you want to sell. You know, you want to make money off of it. You want people to be enticed to pick it up. And what it really shows is and you are a lot like me. And this is what I identified a lot with, even though the subject matter is different than the journey that I went through of being raised on, punk and skateboarding and your, horror.
That's all in there too, though. Those sensibilities are in there.
And this thing reeks of Jim Phillips at times.
Oh, thanks.
Which I love, the line art.
Thank you.
But what it really is too, is it shows the really long road developing your voice and developing a style as an artist.
Yeah.
And, for a lot of us, it just doesn't happen overnight. It's a lot of trial and error. And every time you take a swing, you feel like you're getting a little bit close to being in your fighting shape.
And just keep swinging.
Yeah, absolutely.
And keep fucking swinging.
Well, it's like Wayne Gretzky said, life is all about the shots you don't take. So don't take shots. So what I wanted to do is moving up to my next little piece that I noted here.
Sure.
I found that Hobo with a Shotgun
Yeah.
was an interesting thing in your career. This is in the Rumor years.
Yep.
And I found this to be an interesting part of it because when I think of Hobo with a Shotgun, and granted, I'm not huge in this world, but that was the moment when it seemed like people started to make more indie sensible, smaller horror films.
Yeah.
People were starting to think about using the internet and premium pay-per-view services as distribution. And Hobo with the Shotgun sort of just seemed like the moment when the idea of we can make a movie for
X amount of dollars.
$8 million.
Not even, dude. That movie.
$2 million.
Way. Yeah. More like that.
$500. But it sort of stuck out to me as the beginning of like small investment, big win.
Yeah.
And doing sort of the horror thing from a different perspective.
Yeah, and they're tapping into like 70s exploitation films.
Right.
And horror fans love those too. The crime films from the 70s.
Right.
Those kind of like mob movies from the 70s. And that's where that movie's kind of drawing from. And a little bit of horror too. Like it's gory and weird and it's got monsters in it. Like it's just a bit of everything really.
And the interesting thing about this cover that you did,
right?
It's for this horror magazine,
mm-hmm.
but the art sensibility here, this looks like a skateboard graphic. It looks like a Santa Cruz sticker. You know what I mean? Like it's not the greens and purples and the intense highlight,
or
low
black
light.
all the time.
Everything coming out of the darkness. And I just looked at this and I said, you know what? This is not only a sort of a turning point in your career, but this is kind of becoming, I don't know if it was this film in particular, but this timestamp is sort of an evolution to where this genre would go.
Sure.
And how things would sort of change, both artistically, the way that the posters would be made, the art would be made, but also the way that the films would be crafted.
Well, what's funny about that movie, when the DVD was released, Tom Hodge, are you familiar with him? Dude Designs?
No.
Big poster artist. He did the cover for the actual DVD, and it was an illustration. And, this was just on the cusp of when that movie came out, Mondo was growing.
Yes.
And the whole alternative movie poster art. It's one of the
first. There was
first.
like a synergy.
That's
going.
right.
Yeah.
It was one of the first alternative movie poster art type artwork on a DVD cover. And I thought, you know what? This is it. This is where things are going.
Right.
Because I responded so well to that artwork that it made me want to see that movie so fucking hard.
Yeah.
And, the movie was good. It was a cool movie. It was a cool storm of things. Awesome poster, cool movie, and it did well. And I just really responded to, Tom's art. And then all of a sudden I just, started noticing other alternative movie posters popping up, and it was just on that cusp. And I thought, man, we got to put this movie on the cover. I was championing, hoping that we would.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do my own illustration, but those are the colors of the movie. The movie is shot with neon lighting, it's also 80s inspired as well.
Yeah.
So there's like synth music, there's like, everything's lit with like pinks and purples and blues.
Yeah.
And I wanted to capture that.
And the blood splatter that you did, or the sort of the shotgun blast, being that just straight up magenta.
Yeah. Why not, man? You know what I mean? Like it,
and it's going to print well.
Yeah. And I love the way it just bounces off all the other colors, So yeah, it's just one of those things. And I don't want to make every, drawing I do dark and this, like, no, man, like all the colors of darkness. It's all the colors of darkness.
That's another one of the big takeaways from the book and why I would recommend it to anybody. And once again, it's called Ghoulish, the Art of Gary Pullin. It shows the diversity that it takes to become a successful commercial artist. If you're not, we all know there's always the guy, whether it's a Daniel Danger, we all know the people that stumble across something and it's like, oh, I'm going to be decaying house guy for the rest of my life. Or I'm going to be, Mike Mitchell, satirical Fat Bird, or, the all the pop culture things he did. Sure. We all know when we find something. But for a lot of us, it just becomes an evolution of like what we're capable of. And so I really enjoy when you look at this book, if you're not somebody that every time you hit Apple in, you know exactly what it's going to look like. It's going to look just like the last one.
Sure.
This is the journey of figuring out, who am I? What am I capable of? How do I get there? And I felt like this was not only an interesting time in cinema and the movement of the whole thing, but just an interesting point for you.
Oh, thanks.
But then when we jump into your movies...
Yeah, it goes from the magazine to, after I quit the magazine, to me as a freelance working on movie posters.
And the thing is it's a lot more than just artwork. The sidebar, the left sidebar, pretty much through the entire book is ongoing interview. And
I gotta say, April Snellings did a fucking bang up job.
Yeah.
Longtime friend, excellent writer, award-winning writer.
Mm-hmm.
And, she made it entertaining. The footnotes are funny.
Yeah.
It's like she told my story in such an engaging way that I was just, blown away by it.
Hey friends, I hope you're enjoying today's Creep Week episode with Ghoulish Gary Pullin. I wanted to remind you that our fantastic logo was done this year by our friends over at flylanddesigns.com. Brian Allen was on the show last Thursday. He's a Circle of Trust member and a daily listener of Adventures in Design who was tasked to create a monster for the Philadelphia Flyers. He gave birth to the creature that is known as Gritty. We love Gritty on AID, and we love that he was made by one of our own. But he did it using his own set of brushes that you can purchase over on his website, which is flylanddesigns.com. Go over to the shop, and you can download these brushes that he created for Clip Studio Paint. There's packages that are as small as 110 brushes, going all the way up to over 500. The prices on these are incredibly cheap, $9 for 500 brushes. And these brushes are not only just line art brushes, because he's a fantastic illustrator with an amazing line work, but a lot of them are textures and patterns and different ways that easily you can just pick up a brush and put the perfect scratches or cobwebs or dents in whatever it is that you're making. Head over to his website, flylanddesigns.com/shop. When you go to buy one of these brushes, even though they're cheap, they're going to be even cheaper for you because you're going to use the coupon code COT. We thank Brian for coming on the show and telling us all about the story of Gritty. And if you're not a Circle of Trust member, the first hour was just all about going viral, the ups and downs, and having local news, mainstream nightly news, and every talk show make fun of your artwork until the world learned to love it. But the second hour is all about what's next, the ups and downs of a long-term design career, and how to play that passive income battle, right? Many of us know you come to this idea where you say, I can only have so many illustration hours in a week. How do I make more? How do I put more away for my future? We talk all about that in the second hour, only available for members of the Circle of Trust. Let's get back into hanging out with our good friend, Ghoulish Gary. Make sure to grab his book, Ghoulish, The Art of Gary Pullin, over on Amazon, or get it from 1984 Press, where you get an exclusive 12-inch with it. Let's get back into our episode with Ghoulish Gary on AID.network. So when we get into the movie posters, what I found to be fascinating is that, now you don't have to put the magazine up there, the magazine logo. You don't have to put the 6 articles that you're teasing. Yeah. There's no more begging to be picked up, because a movie poster is always about what you're not saying. It's about the silence of it or the call
Less
to
is
action.
more.
Absolutely. And I feel like, we look at your early sort of crude drawings that we all have in notebooks, sketchbooks, and early projects that make us all wince. And then you have the magazine years, but the movie years, when you were just able to silence out the world and focus on one thing, it's how crazy your career changed.
Yeah. It felt like a shift, for sure.
For sure. I mean, a level up, and the thing is that chapter 2 is great work until you get to chapter 3 and you really see the evolution of an artist, and also somebody finding maybe their subject matter, like that the movie poster was really good for you being such a fan, having such a diverse amount of art style. So the first one that I put a thumb note on here was the Babadook. And I really feel like the next couple of pages here, you're showing your sketches, this Vertigo couldn't be any different than the Babadook the day before. And it really shows a lot of diversity and sort of a restraint, a silence in your artwork, which once again comes to the whole theory of that this is the journey, everything before these moments is pretty bright, pretty look at me, pay attention to me.
Right.
But
That's
now
interesting.
This is a level of restraint. And I think that what maybe you didn't realize is that the magazine days were teaching you how not only to sharpen your chops as an illustrator, but you're a fucking good graphic designer.
Oh, thanks, man.
You know balance, you know typography, and where some of the guys might be able to, you know, paint or illustrate a little bit stronger than you,
Absolutely, I agree.
you can dial in a layout and your typography is first class, my friend.
Oh, thanks, man. I always
class.
kind of have, and I've told people this, I feel like I'm 50% illustrator, 50% graphic design. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's more like 60-40.
I think it's 60-40.
But, you know, I have such
You're
a
selling yourself a
strong
little
training.
bit short on that.
Oh, thanks. But I have such a strong training with graphic design.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and I've always paid attention to typography. I mean,
Yes.
you know, it's just in our blood, right?
Absolutely. And if you're one of the people that becomes hyper aware of it, you focus on it and you fixate on it and you don't just leave.
Yeah.
Well, the last 2 hours, I'll figure out where I typed the name on this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And when you do study typography, you can tell the prints where somebody's like, the last 2 hours, I typed the name on this thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But then as we go through, I mean, a plethora of prints that you did and, you know, experimenting on, do I want to make them look Jim Phillips with, you know, solid outlines, like your Teen Wolf stuff that you use for the cover? Do I want to go for, you know, solid outlines, highlights, sort of from the skateboard, like commercial illustrator world, or do I want to do stuff that looks like painterly?
To me, it's what's appropriate for the movie. So if that kind of drawing works for Teen Wolf, I'll go for it. But if that kind of drawing, that kind of style, is not going to be good for Hereditary or something like that. You know what I mean?
And that's why you're a commercial artist.
Right. I guess so.
Because you take the subject matter
Yeah.
and you work for it.
Yeah, I kind of say, how am I going to tackle this? And I try new things sometimes, you know. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't, but at least I'm trying, and I'm trying to push my style, right? I'm always trying to do I don't know. I'm always just trying to push it.
Well, you're very blue collar in your artistic mindset because you're willing to work for the subject matter. Now, other people like Jason Evanston, they make the subject matter work for them because it's going to always go into sort of the same machine, right? Like he has a thing that he does. Too bad he's no longer alive to share any of the insights with us or to talk about his best bud that he can't even compliment on his interview. But
it's fine.
yeah, you're getting a lot of head shakes, but I'm sure in your heart you'd like to get a verbal recorded. I agree. He's a great typographer.
They're up and down head shakes, not side to side head shakes.
Hold on, talking to that again. Oh, that isn't even turned on. Turn it on. That's the hammer mic.
Hello.
There he is.
I said they're side to side. Wait, they're up and down head shakes, not side to side head
Yes,
shakes.
Right.
Their agreeance is not like, no,
Yes,
you got it
no,
wrong.
no.
You got it wrong.
Well,
Gary's
thanks,
one of
Jay.
the greatest graphic designers that I know.
Oh,
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
The typography is always spot on. It's always exactly the right vibe for that era because he does a lot of, I call it genre graphic design treatments.
Yeah.
Like this has got to have a 50s vibe or a 60s vibe.
Yeah.
And it's got to
He knows how to sell it.
Yeah, it's got to be 60s tiki or 60s monster.
Right.
And it always feels correct.
Yeah, he can do the impossible thing, which is sell the concept. Do me a favor. Take that microphone and put it between those two boxes where you're signing so we just get a little bit of background noise of you so people know that there's work being done.
All right. It's just going to be me flipping pages and
Yeah, no, but that
signing.
adds to the ambiance of what we're
Right.
doing in this insane
Yeah.
hotel room.
It's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it's a wild vibe in here tonight. It's like Andy Warhol's studio, but with no talent
Without Andy Warhol or
or any talent or hot
drugs
dudes.
and-
All right, so I think a next level up for you, and I told you this when it came out.
Yeah.
Your Batman print.
Yeah.
This to me is showing that you've got all the ability of an illustrator, but this is you putting graphic design into your illustration.
Yeah, it's kind of it's sort of like, I wanted to do something really iconic.
Oh, you did.
And just like simple. And honestly, I got to say, I was kind of taking a page out of Phantom City on that one, just a little bit.
Oh, yeah, it
just
looked-
inspired
yeah.
by his work and their work, Justin and Paige. So, yeah, I was just sort of like, and he does a lot of Batman stuff. So I was actually trying to impress him more than anybody, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, it worked out good. I want to do more stuff like that.
I mean, I would encourage you to when it fits for the subject matter.
Yeah,
Just because
of
you
course.
are such a great graphic designer that this type of conceptual work doesn't seem that hard for you or that you're capable of it. A lot of people just can't. I mean, they can make whatever's in front of them look real as fuck. But when it comes to this sort of like, oh, how can I take the pieces and tell a new story out of it? But even, across from that in this spread, you have, what is this for?
It's the howling. It's in his fur.
Yeah. And you have the
Werewolf
name
movie.
written in the neckline of the fur of the character. So
I like to hide stuff.
But, this is strong outline. It couldn't be any different than the Batman that sits across
Sure.
from it. But
that's an earlier poster too.
Yeah.
So when I say things are chronological, it's more like my career, not the images
not
are
print per page.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you want to group them in ways that make sense.
Yeah. So, we, the people that laid out the book, Shane and Desiree Lewis, I mean, man, they just paired up my images so well. They looked at my images like I've never looked at them before. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's cool to have like a graphic designer design your book.
Yeah.
I was the client.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've never been a client of my own stuff. It's weird. Like, you know what I mean?
I find it difficult.
Yeah.
I'm just now learning how to let go, and if you give it to somebody else to do it, you got to let them do it.
And that's what I did. I gave him a couple tips.
Yeah.
I was like, I want it classy, clean, like a Taschen book.
Yeah.
I don't want
Has that vibe.
crazy horror splatter.
No.
I don't want splatter fonts. I want it to look classy, well presented, and let the art speak for itself. And the story, is there too, but it's not text heavy. I want it to be more about the artwork and presentation than anything, really. And tell my story. How you doing back there, Jay?
That sounds amazing. What numbers are you signing?
I'm signing my Halloween Laurie Strode, so I'm up to 150 out of 325.
So during the course,
bed at 4 in the morning.
if you get done,
Again.
if you get done with all of those during this interview, how many will be signed during this interview?
140 around there.
Okay.
40.
Okay.
And I think people need to know, like, Jason has been up all night last night. I mean, I was up till 4. He went to bed at like 6. The night before, we had no sleep. Like, so I apologize for the shaky voice.
That's all right.
And we did a con today.
Yeah, these guys killed it today at the Halloween 40 that happened in Pasadena 2 weekends ago. All right, moving on. Now this is where I get the happiest.
Oh, nice.
When you do, I'm looking at the My Bloody Valentine, Maniac Cop.
Yeah.
And this kind of spreads. No, this isn't that moment. These two prints that you do is a nod to 50s advertising.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it's black and red, 2 plates. And we were talking about this over dinner. This is the type that talks to you, where every idea gets its own little container. Everything's compartmentalized, and there's just a flow. It's a hierarchy. It's almost as if it's like today's world. This is called infographics.
Yeah.
Back then, it was just called advertising on a budget.
That's right.
And I love that you have the capability to do these paintings and illustrations, but that you can also get in and do these type of spreads. And this just speaks to me. I'm a junkie on
thanks.
this. I love this type of stuff.
Well, I'm glad, because so do I, and it's like I'm glad that you get that
I
and
love
understand what I'm going for with this
I get
stuff.
everything in here. I haven't exactly seen it, but I know the call to actions that you're doing.
Sure.
For example, here, this little blown up map.
Right.
That's an old gimmick of we're located on Route 55.
Yeah, and I make up all that stuff that's in the movie, like, hey, there's a Haniger museum, or that kind of thing. I just love posters like that. I love filling with every inch of detail. Okay, movie posters, you don't need to do that. I mean, that is a movie poster,
Right?
But it's a different kind of thing than like the Babadook, right? Like, it's not minimalist, but whatever. Just, I felt like doing something really fun. There's a lot of facts in the movie that are really cool, and that's something you could hang in the bathroom and read. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's the type of thing that if you had it hanging in your home or office, you would just notice little gimmicks about it. You know, every year or month, you'd be like, my favorite thing is that pickaxe.
Right.
Until you fall in love with this little lamp that you have breaking
Thanks.
the plane right there, like
Thanks.
a workman's lamp. Work this through with me.
Sure.
Is this harder to do than Batman or Babadook?
No. This is, I I don't want to brag, but I can do that kind of stuff in my sleep.
Yeah.
I love it. Monster Squad, which we'll probably get to later.
Yes.
Same thing, man. I just had so much fun doing that. And I just love it. Like, if I could do everything in that style, like, that's how I would live life. But that's not how life goes, right?
I wish you would. I wish you would be that guy. Do you realize that not everybody's capable to do both styles?
I do, and I sometimes I hope people don't think that I'm unfocused. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
But
like,
do you? I feel like you've almost taken this for granted because it comes so easily to you.
I don't know. It's just something I love doing, and I do sneak it in when I can.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do it all the time.
Yeah.
Because I don't want it to be something I just fall back on.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes it's not appropriate.
Have you ever thought about doing an original series like this?
You know what? If somebody were to say, like, would you like to do an art show and take movies or bands or whatever and do it all like that? I'd fucking be so down. I would love to paint on a gallery wall those ads.
Oh my God, that would be killer.
And they're huge.
Because I've never seen one done.
Those fake
mural.
ads, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's show with Ghoulish Gary Pullin and myself talking all about his book, Ghoulish, The Art of Gary Pullin. Go grab it, Amazon or over at 1984 Publishing, and get that 12-inch that comes with it as a bonus vinyl. But I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. There's a lot more coming for Circle of Trust members. And tomorrow, Gary's back on the show with Jason when we do the Creep Down. That's right. Each year, he grabs 13 creepy prints. We look at them, talk about the art, design, the illustration, the typography, and also a new category, what makes them so damn creepy. Coming up in part 2, we talk more about my favorite pages from the book, but then at the end of the episode, we sort of talk about this journey that Gary's been on. And when I first got the book, I thought, oh, this is really cool. You know, I'm always happy to see one of my friends make a coffee table art book, right? Like, what an accomplishment. I would never make a book because they're way too much work. But when I started to look at it, I really realized that it's a great story about going from A to chimpanzee and how hard of a journey it is and how long it takes to get good, to find your voice, and how sweet it is when you arrive there. So it's a really fantastic book. And at the end of today's episode, we sort of talk a bit about the journey and, you know, some of the more emotional takeaway points of what this journey has meant to Gary, who, as you can tell, is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. He's been on the show several times. Hear all of today's episode and all of those appearances, as well as Jason Edmondson's and everybody else that's ever been on, by going to AID.network and becoming a member of the Circle of Trust. All right, let's get back into part 2. Don't forget to come back tomorrow for our Creep Down. And then Wednesday, a very, very special Halloween episode and, dare I say, Halloween vlog with Alex Pardee. That's right. We're going to have some serious good times this week as Creep Week extends itself into 8 episodes this year. But I'm getting ahead of myself because before we can do any of that, we got to get into part 2 with Ghoulish Gary and sometimes Jason Edmondston. But the thing that I look at from this is that one of these prints, let's say that you did it on your own IP, one of these prints breaks down to a countless amount of enamel pens, patches, stickers,
Oh, I
t-shirts.
know, right? Yeah,
right?
sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
you make one of these, and then you start dissecting from it. Jason's opening a second box. I'll be doing the play-by-play.
That's right.
Which is great.
I can smell those fresh prints from here.
Oh, yeah, look at him pulling out. And by the way, he's signing a Halloween print that he did. You want to pop on real quick and tell people what that print is?
Yeah, it's I did a Halloween movie poster for Mondo in 2015 that was Michael Myers crashing through the closet trying to attack Jamie Lee Curtis's character, and it's looking at Michael upwards from the view of Jamie Lee Curtis, and we had an opportunity to do a poster with the licensing department of Halloween for the 40th anniversary for this around this convention that Gary and I are exhibiting at. And Rob Jones and I were talking and just spitballing and I was talking about what some ideas that I was wanting to do. And I think he had suggested maybe direction, riffing off of that poster.
Yeah, like what's the opposite thing happening in that moment?
It's awesome.
So we're just kind of back and forth and thought, oh, well, it'd be great to show his point of view looking down at her. So they both have a knife, but it's not from the exact same moment. It's from just maybe a minute later. She stabs him in the eye and disorients him. He drops his knife and she grabs it, and that's her physically taking
Defense.
some power and defense, and it's it's a strong image they've used in promotion before. But
when you were putting them together, when you're making this new one,
mm-hmm.
did you line it up next to the other one to see how they flow side by side?
Yeah, I literally took the perspective of the first one, and I drew perspective lines on it to figure out where my vanishing points went.
So this is in the same style guide.
Yeah, I drew over the Michael Myers poster to figure out where my perspective line, like my 3-point perspective, vanished to.
Can I have the one you drew over?
It's just a digital line. And I turn it upside down.
Yeah,
because that was looking up.
Right.
So if I turn it upside down, it's the exact opposite, kind of like a playing card.
That's amazing.
And then I use that as my perspective grid to draw him looking down at her, and it matches. I picked the louvered doors on the opposite side of her,
right,
which would be on her right, which is on his left. Just
God, I love all the forensics of figuring out how to put this together.
So
it's great,
and I match the colors as well. So when you look at them next to each other, hopefully, people that like the first one will buy the second one. When you physically hang them next to each other, it has that playing card look, where you flipped it upside down, because the louvered doors match on either side. If you could hang it left,
did Jason just discover? Oh my God, the whole poster world's going to go nuts when they realize they can now make prequels and sequels to their posters.
To their art, yeah.
See, that's what's great about that. That's the extra.
I'll just do a poster for every 5 minutes along the movie.
I mean, imagine making Halloween and 40 years later getting the payday they got today off of all the licensing. It's absolutely insane.
I think I read that the licensing they made, because that movie made, when it first came out, I don't know, $3 million or something low.
Yeah.
It was quoted in Wikipedia. The profits, $3 billion.
Wow.
A box office gross of $3 billion. Because it keeps coming back in midnight screenings. And
it's got a life.
And merchandising. Well, anyways, Jason, I know you didn't sell any of those today, so hopefully you'll sell some of those tomorrow.
2
or 300. But with this look,
yep,
I love it, man. I love the way that it flows and the way you can follow along with it. Now, the next thing that I dog-eared is... Was it last year that I told you that I thought that this Halloween print, ironically for Halloween 2, that I told you that I thought this was the best thing you'd ever made?
Yeah, because I remember you put it on the countdown with Mitch.
I did.
And you were just praising it, and that made me feel so good because, I was just, again, going for the painterly thing, and am I doing it right? You know what I mean? So...
But what I loved about it is, there's so many people now that have been able to figure out how to take paintings into silkscreen and how to, figure out a way to do printing that's never been done before, outside of, 4-color process, which, we all kind of turn our nose up at. Sorry, DKNG. But this Halloween 2 print, it shows you getting painterly, but once again, it has that essence of graphic design in it.
Right. Yeah.
Like the way that you put the skull inside of his jumpsuit is very graphic design. It's sort of that. It's a lot like the thing that we just looked at. It's in that same sort of vibe.
Sure. Yeah. Right. It's like I guess I'm trying to make things iconic.
Yes.
Without always using a black outline.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I get that.
So the Halloween print was just taking a cool idea of the pumpkin in his chest from part 2, which is a well-known sort of skull pumpkin that they used. I kind of riffed on that, and I thought, well, what if we just put it right like he was carved? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, he is fucking Halloween. You know what I mean? He is, the essence of Halloween.
Now, in Halloween 2, is that the one where Michael Myers is going against Dr. Evil and he's already living in
Dr. Loomis? He's part 2, Dr. Evil. Yeah. Nicely done. I get you. Nicely done. Smart.
Slid it in there.
$1 million, Michael Myers.
Dude, that movie's now old enough that people will be like, $1 million is shit. So moving along,
sure,
because I love the Halloween 2 print.
Thanks.
And it seems like at this moment in your career, the renderings are getting more sophisticated, more complicated, but so is sort of the the design and the conceptual. Like, it seems like the cylinders, the whole distance that you've covered as a journeyman is all coming together. And a really understated poster that I loved a lot was this recent one you did for the Blob.
Yeah. Just honestly, that was for an art show, and I just something fun.
But it once again, you're not over illustrating it. You're not begging for me to pay attention to it. Like, there's enough subtlety in there